process. He needs to get that thing live. That's the thing. I mean,
Good
good
morning,
morning, good morning,
good
good morning,
afternoon.
Alva. How are you? Good afternoon. Yes, how are you, Alva? How are you?
I'm doing great. We are here again. We are here again for another Saturday, another edition. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Doing great. It's been a great week, outstanding week, exciting week. A lot of opportunities, a lot of challenges. Just preparing for, like I said last week, the 1 year memorial next week, and plus, Independence Day across the U.S. But all in all, it's a great week. It was a great week, and I'm excited about the show. You've had me excited all week, and getting back in the groove. Getting back in the groove, getting my steps back. And putting. I've been thinking about the show the entire week. Honestly, I've been thinking about the show the entire week. So I'm
That's good.
excited to be here this morning to engage with
That's the
everybody
energy
and
we kind of
connect.
need. And we got to start building more social media conversation around the show, to make it more exciting, like you, to get others to start to really look forward, to the show. So that's a good thing. I'm excited too because I think the show can have a strong influence on a lot of things. If we keep pushing and we keep engaging and we keep um, dissecting these different issues and then, making realistic recommendations that people can follow, giving people insight, tips as to how they can do what they can do. I think it will make it very interesting and very, a needful thing for people to participate. I especially look forward to, the future guests we have, the wisdom they can share, the experience they can share, and some of the practical things that they will advise people about, that could actually impact their businesses, could impact how the economy is flowing, could impact how we relate to one another. So, yes, I'm very excited. Um, Thank you for coming in, Justin. And to all of you who are coming in, we really appreciate you coming to the show. We think there's a lot of opportunity for all of us to learn. We hope some of you who are really, really engaged with the comments you make can participate here and maybe on wherever else is shared or posted. And hopefully, you guys can call in today. We hope to open up the lines and get more people involved. Folks, this is Business Talk. We are here for business. We are here for the economy. We are here for liberalization. We are here for a lot of positive things, the growth and development of Liberia, and how we can collaborate, how we can do it together. So feel free. This show is your show. We want you to be an active part, and let's get it on the road. So you want any opening words, Akino, before we really get to some of the key things we're going to talk about today?
Well, I mean, the key thing we talked. I mean, one of the key points you mentioned is that the from the genesis of this show, we created this show. We conceived the idea to help, you know, stimulate growth, economic empowerment at all levels of the Liberian society. We who are in the diaspora in the U.S., turning, churning, and giving so much to the U.S. economy, but at the same time, what can we do as Liberians in the diaspora? How can we give back to our native country, our homeland, from the perspective of ideas and different things? And coming up with this show that's using the power of the internet. We're streaming live by way of Facebook, broadcasting through several different radio transmitters across Liberia. We're broadcasting live in Monrovia on Love FM that covers, I mean, several different counties. And then we're also relaying into Kakata. And today we're broadcasting live on two FM stations in Bunk County, the centralmost part of Liberia, covering, tens of thousands of people listening, people who are into business, steady business, small business, medium-sized business, and also those who are big business people. And so it's very, very rewarding. And as you said, I mean, this is something where we're being a catalyst and we're empowering young people at all levels with new ideas and pushing them, driving them for them to be creative. I see somebody here, Jusu Hassan, joining from Kakata as well, listening to the show there. So thank you to everyone who participates in the show every week. And we're back. We're back better than before. We've got great ideas and new things to do today. So go ahead. I've made a couple of points. I know you put in the script what you wanted us to kind of talk about and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So we kind of trying to incorporate the global, right? Because our national, because before we're just talking business. Now we are integrating the economy into that business, right? Why is our economy structured the way it's structured? What are some of the things that, yes, are positive, but in the same token, some of those things can impact, us in a negative way, and be able to not allow Liberians to really own the economy. And that's the drive, right? The primary drive of business talk is how can Liberians really be the engine that drives this country as opposed to, the secondary participants in our economy. So we are pushing for this. We got the resources, we got the rubber, the iron ore, the palm, the gold, the timber, the diamonds. Now we're hearing, there is ore potential bigger than what people thought, and the quantities of gold that we're finding more than what was ever, being mined in the country. So by any measure, when we look at that, we say, oh, we got natural resources. We have great natural endowment. We should be rich. But why are we not rich? So that question is one of the questions of why is Liberia one of the poorest countries in the world. So we got to dive in and see, what are those things that's causing us to be so poor. And one of the main thing is the fact that we are an enclave economy. And we talked about that last week, but we'll just break it down again so people can understand that what enclave means, right? Typically, by definition, it's just like a small sector within a place or a small portion of a place. And the way our economy is structured in response to an enclave economy is that we just focus on resource extraction, right? And that's really not connected to the rest of the economy. It's just on the peripheral there, like the iron ore, they come, they dig it out, goes to the port, gets out of our country. The value addition is done probably in China or in some other countries. So the jobs from processing, the revenue from that could be taxed internally. The profits from selling it as steel, that margin now that you have added value, it doesn't touch Liberia. So yeah, we get royalty, and in a lot of instances, we don't even get the equity that we deserve in these things because these companies tend to inflate their books, make their cost prohibitive in a way that profit is not significant, that there's no revenue coming to us. So yes, Nigeria is rich, the wealth is there, but is it staying? No, it's just passing through. It's not even circulating. So that's one of the key things. Then another thing is, people talk about comparative advantage in economics, where you have an advantage in this particular sector, or you have, so much of this product that you can produce it at scale and be able to, feed your people, be able to employ your people, and be able to, advance your economy. But if we are locked into this whole export enclave economy kind of mindset, it's not easy for us to elevate ourselves. That's why we need to discuss it more. We need to see how we can build that capacity. We need to see how we can develop the infrastructure. And again, we're not go there again today, but last Saturday, the issue of electricity, and we had an in-depth discussion about electricity, and we can share one or two clips from last week that my partner here, Aquino, really talked about. He even gave a word of advice to the president about this electricity and gave a vision. He said, in terms of the future, if we don't have electricity, all presidents will suffer. So now we have to make this
Well,
effort. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you bring up a very, very good point because I mean, even from the time, you go back, you're older than me. I go back to, being born and raised in Firestone. And our economy has always been based on extraction, extract, export, extract, export. But I think, what we talked about last week, which was very, very important, and we want to expand upon it today, like you said, we need to transform, right? The key word here is not change, but to transform our mindsets. We need, that there needs to be a transformation in the way of thinking because we are part of an ecosystem. That was the word you brought up last week. So we need to start thinking from the ecosystem perspective that we as a nation, as a people, we're this enclave mentality, thought process, or thinking or concept needs to be shredded, cut down, uprooted, and cast out. And we need to bring in, or we need to transform our mindsets into an ecosystem mentality where we understand that there are integral parts of our economy and we need to start working like a symphony orchestra, right? Where you've got one guy, he's the conductor, and you've got so many people in the orchestra, and everybody's playing a different note, playing a different instrument. But at the end of the day, the sound that comes out of there from the orchestra, it is so amazingly beautiful, but you forget that there are so many different parts of it. So, in the energy sector in every developed economy, developing economy, economy that seeks development is so central to its success. It's so central to its success for value addition, especially when you talk about value addition. So from the iron ore to the rubber to the palm oil to the cassava, agricultural products, mining products, it is so critical that energy must be seen, must be understood within this ecosystem thinking and mindset that energy is the cog, the centermost part. And then from there, everything now becomes possible. So, and how we tie that to the different levels of businesses across the country, from petty traders all the way up to the multinationals who are doing extraction of natural resources, iron ore, bauxite, critical minerals, whatever it is, gold. Without that energy, component, it's kind of hard to debate or discuss that at the table when the discussions are being had for the concession agreement. Because if this company, right, if you are a company coming in and the president is telling you that, hey, our timber, you love our timber, you want our timber, but we want value addition. We want sawmills. We want timber processing facilities. The question now on the table is where is the energy? Where is the energy, Mr. President, to make that happen? If I have to build a 2 megawatt or a 5 megawatt power plant to power up the sawmills to add value to the timber, then what are you prepared to give me? Are you going to give me duty-free importation on my diesel fuel? Then if you do that, you're extracting from the benefits of that investment because then he's going to have to factor in logistics infrastructure. He's going to have to truck it in or he's going to bring it in by sea, and then storage infrastructure. So there's a whole addition that he needs to do in terms of infrastructure development just to support that energy sector. So again, like you said, we need to look at it holistically and that new mindset of the ecosystem that supports value addition and the various parts and how we in the diaspora, right? Because Liberia's real wealth for transformation and development and economic progress and empowerment in the country is in the diaspora. The Liberians in the US, the Liberians in Canada, the Liberians in Europe that send all of this money home. How can we place that money in our economy to create more jobs, stimulate economic growth, economic empowerment, and transform and move this country forward?
Great.
So this is business talk, everyone. So if this is business talk. If you got the link, please share it on your Facebook. Let's get more people involved. We're also on YouTube, on Ava's YouTube. Share it. Please come in the chat room, put some chats in there and questions and stuff like that. So let's peel it back. Let's go, Ava. Let's go to the next layer.
Right. So before we get to the issue, I just want to share that typically in this show we have like three primary segments, right? We start with the big topic. It will be the IMF programs that we own. It could be the concession agreements. It could be budget framework. It will be a specific topic that will break down, and then to the lowest level possible so that everybody can have a clear understanding, right? Then at some point we question, what does that mean for the market woman, the youth, the young college graduate, the business owner, the hardworking rapper, the miners, and just people in a society, in the economy? How does it relate to them? And then towards the end now, we always try to say we're signing different people something, right? It's like a message to that particular group, whether it's government, whether it's business, whether it's the private sector, whether it's you, the listener, who are very important into this whole messaging that we're trying to bring to people. So the show will not be static, and we have already created a little section where we highlight our local Liberian business. If we can get in touch with them to do it, then we'll get more information from them, great. If not, we'll still highlight them because that's the goal, to do it, to get our businesses on the map, to get them exposed, to get people to understand who they are. So we are a business and economic show. We try to follow the evidence. We try to do analysis that's very relevant, that will add value. As they say, we want value to be added to our minerals. We want value to be added to our content. All right. So this is not a government show. This is not a political show. But this is a show that will touch on those sometimes. Sometimes we'll praise a certain policy. Sometimes we'll have issues like with a policy like we have the issue with the liberalization policy. The fact that we got limited sectors. The fact that there's not enough facilitation for Liberians to fully participate in those sectors. The fact that some Liberians will front for foreigners and let it a sector that should be reserved for Liberians. So, those are the kind of things that, and then the enforcement on those things coming from government itself to ensure that Liberians are actually participating. You're not facilitating, but you're not enforcing. I mean, it leaves it open for anybody else to be there to participate. So that's how the show will run. And economics is very personal. It comes to you as an individual, whether you can put food on your table, whether you can get transportation to go home, or go to work, whether you can send your kids to school. Basically everything you do, whether you can start a business, is economics. Whether you can get medication is economics, because it requires you to spend money. It requires you to understand what's going on in the economy. So what we're doing here, everything with business and economics, is very relevant. It's relevant to how the country is structured. It's relevant to how the budget is structured. It's relevant to how the country is run. So this will be a holistic look at our national ecosystem and the different sub-ecosystems and how they touch us Liberians in a way we want to be touched. And if it's not, we got to talk about it. So that's how the conversation will go as we move this show along. So if you want to add on to that before we get into the show, please do. Otherwise, we can just jump right in. Any comment from you? Let me see who's here, who's commenting. Let me add my man back to the stage. Actually,
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
okay.
No, your points are spot on, Abba. I mean, this is not a political show. We've got to break this thing down. We've got to serve as the instrument, okay, the catalyst to stimulate this new level of thinking, like you rightly said, from the ecosystem perspective. It's not about criticizing, it's about revealing, explaining. I mean, some of the policies are good, but again, the transformational mindset is not there. So I think, let's go into, there was something I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit today when we started off the show.
Okay.
When we started off this show, we talked about, you remember the 10 success essentials for businesses. And that was something we talked about from the genesis of the show. You got to have passion, you got to have knowledge about what it is you're doing as a business, experience, bringing your experience into your business, setting specific goals and KPIs. So the same thing again, if you apply it to the ecosystem perspective, what are the key performance indexes that you're looking at or are being looked at, viewed as these new projects are being implemented? Again, vision. What is the vision? What is the short, medium, and long term vision for the projects or for the business as it relates? Creating a mission statement. What is the state? What is the mission statement that everybody needs to align themselves with to drive these ideas and these goals for transformational outcomes? What's the master plan? What is the master plan? What is the strategy that would drive the master plan for these projects that will be transformative in nature for this country, for the different political subdivisions and whatnot? The team, again, building the team. Are the right people, are you adding the right people to the team? Does every member of the team bring something that will help to make sure that the team can deliver in carrying out the strategies that will actually drive the plan? And then accountability. Who's accountable for what on the team to drive the project, to drive the strategy, and to drive the plan? And last but not least, positive work environment. These were the things that we talked about. And when you look at an ecosystem that is going to be focused and built on value addition, these 10 points are so critical for making sure that the ecosystem works in a harmonious way to produce the kind of transformational change for growth and development and moving forward. So let's go into what do you want to what do you want us to start with today? What do you want to
So
start with?
let's start with something. Actually, I want to say something simple, but sometimes not everything is simple, right? But let's start with a number, right? We already talked about the resources we have, and some one of the largest iron ore reserves in West Africa, one of the largest rainforests, right? So on paper, we have all these things that dominate gold timber, but in reality, the one number that strikes most people that signifies poverty is that Liberians live on less than $2 a day. So how does that happen? Like, why is it that we have so much wealth on paper and in the ground, but we are a poor country in essence? That people living on $2 a day means 2 times for some months 31, so that's $62. How much is $62 for anybody to live on less than $62? So now I want to get your insight, and then we can re-explain this whole enclave thing. We can talk about some of the different deals that Liberian have signed that kind of strangulating us, maybe. And then, we'll look at the whole framework that we operate under, primarily the Washington Consensus. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll probably go to a break, get our little commercial in for our guest business. And then, we go on to our next point, spotlighting, iron ore today. We'll look at that sector and we'll see how it's impacting our people. And then we can get our callers in and ask questions. So, we'll try to do this within a time frame, an hour to an hour, 30 minutes, to make this short and responsive for people to, really enjoy it. So if you want to start from there, that's where we're going. So that $2 a day number that supposedly our people live on. Why are we there? And why it seems like we stuck there, like we're being on $2 a day forever.
Well, I think the reason why we find ourselves in where we are, okay, is simply because the mindset's wrong. If you bring the wrong mindset, if you bring the wrong level of understanding, knowledge, enlightenment, revelation, if you bring all of the wrong ingredients into making, be it, cooking or baking, if you bring all the wrong ingredients, then don't expect what comes out of the oven to be right. That's just fundamental. Okay. And if you look at our history as a country, as a nation, as a people, we really haven't introduced transformational thinking into how we do business as a country, as a nation from the concession agreements. Every concession agreement signed today in 2026 is still boilerplate. It still has the same form factor. It still has the same structure from those that were signed in 1980, 1970s, and 1960s. Everything is still the same. I mean, that's just fundamental. So, and if you think about the world today, the world has changed from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, and now here it is. We're in, in 1920, 2026, in 20. So that's one of the challenges right there. The mindset and the amazing thing is the people who are making these decisions sitting at the table, Hava, in 2025, 2026, okay, these are people who went to Ivy League school. They went abroad to Europe, Canada, US, went to school, worked in industrialized economies around the world. Some of them went to school in Ghana, Ivory, whatever the case is. They went to school in industrialized economies or developing economies. So the question now becomes, when you go to the table to sit, are you taking into consideration the changes, the transformation that have happened since 1960s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s? Are you bringing all of that back to the table, even though you were not even in the decision-making process at that time? And the realities of today are, there are a stark difference of the reality compared to the realities of yesteryears. So why would you sign a concession agreement today using the form factor of an agreement from the 1970s? 100% extractive base. Why would you do that?
And that's the point. That's the mindset. That's where we stuck. And that's where we need to elevate from, right?
That's the mindset.
I would look at our economy, because being stuck in that mindset means that we're stuck in the enclave economy.
That's exactly right.
Export economy. Right. So we got to change that. So that's part of it.
We have to change that.
Come in and say, oh, corruption. Some people come in and say, oh, the Civil War, and all those are factors. We don't say that. But because of the economic cycle we're stuck in, that's why we're going to improve our infrastructure. You talk about the electricity. There are other infrastructure deficits we have, whether it's water, whether it's roads, and those limit investment, because you say if somebody got to spend X amount of dollars trying to create a hydro, they're not come here where they can go somewhere else where water there, light there, all that kind of stuff, right? So we have those limitations that affect us. Then where the war affects us is where the knowledge gap exists, the institutional weaknesses we face. And then when bad governance comes in, sets in, that replacement is not an easy thing. It doesn't just happen like that. Because whether people want to believe it or not, when somebody becomes a government worker, I don't care how bad they are, that replacement, that possibility of moving them is really like not even possible. I've dealt with managers in government, ministers, director, who cannot fire an incompetent, government employee simply because they are civil servant. Is that enough? So those are some of the things that are really holding us back that we have to, think about how we can get around them for us to really hit this development pedal and then force it down to the metal that we can move ahead full steam and be put in a category of, a mid-level developed country or a really fully developed country if we can get there. Some of us don't think in our lifetime it will happen, but it's still a goal that we can drive for. So when we talk about why we poor, a lot of it has to do with our mindset and the way we do business, not because of the resources, but it's the system our resources come into, how we treat them. There are so many things happening in Africa today, in other developing countries, that are transforming those countries in terms of what they are doing with the resources. And we need to start thinking about some of those models and how we can do something similar.
There's something wrong with my internet here today. I don't know why it blinked up, but if you can hear me, if you bring up a very important point. When I was listing these 10 success factors or key essential for success, number 9 is accountability. So when you think about it, who is being held accountable for the lack of the transformation in the country? Who's being held accountable for incompetence at the civil service level? Who's being held accountable at the ministry level, where everyone serves at the pleasure of the president? You get my point. Accountability is so critical to producing results and transformation. If no one is held accountable, then people, we humans, we are very amazing creatures. If people don't feel that they will be held accountable for anything that they do, for their bad choices, bad decisions, and ultimately bad actions, then there's not a motivation for them to transform or to change or to produce transformative results.
We hear your voice, but we can see your face. But we understand you're getting internet problems. But yes, you're making a strong point, and you're relating to something I've been thinking about for a while now. I call it sanity, because I want to say sanity or anything like that, right? But it's actually a sovereign accountability, right?
I'm gonna refresh my screen. Okay, so continue talking.
Refresh your screen, and then I don't want you to miss this. Folks, the topic is very interesting. We really need to look at our own national accountability. That's why I'm saying sovereign accountability and national interests. Whether that commission, whether that project, whether that program, yes, now I can see the man. Okay, we can see you now. So yeah, as I was saying, this concept you talk about accountability, we really need a sovereign accountability in national interest program or commission or something that really seeks the interest of the people. You talk about concessions. We talk about background. We have had studies that show in one specific instance, the Moe Stephens report, 66 out of 68 concessions done the right way. There were legal issues, there were other factors and stuff like that. And when we even just from the outside look at some of these concessions, what they're producing, what they're supposed to be doing, what they're not doing, there's a lack of accountability there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Accountability of those people who sat at the table and negotiated those deals. Those people who should be enforcing those deals today.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So that's so interesting. And the recovery, there's significant money that we can recover from these people and all in the effort to right size some of these deals. So that's a whole program that I have tried to kind of put a concept around, and we try to push that we can do. Yeah, they say, oh, there could be impact because when you sign contract, you get no. If you sign bad contracts that have legal implications and bad intent for the country, we can definitely be able to change that. So
you bring up a point. That's why for those of us who are into sales, marketing, business development, account management, we're held to a higher standard. We're held accountable for what we produce, because We have what we call performance-based compensation. If you don't sell it, you're not going to make it. So it's just that simple. So we're driven to develop a plan, develop a strategy to drive the plan, develop a strategy to produce results from the plan, because your results are your reward. So when you have people who are not who are serving at the pleasure of the president, who appoints them at the Bureau of Concessions. So what is the accountability structure at the Bureau of Concessions? Is it based on how many concessions you can sign? Or is it based on how many concessions you sign that produce transformative results for the country? There's a big difference there. Are you only rewarding the Bureau of Concessions because they signed 25 concessions in 2025? Or are you rewarding the Bureau of Concessions for signing 25 concessions in 2025, and those 25 concessions produce transformational change, economic empowerment, job creation in the 25 areas across the country where they were signed? There's a big difference there. There's a very, very big difference there. And that's why I'm a very, very big proponent, a very, very big supporter of performance-based compensation. You cannot just pay somebody, a flat salary every month, put him in an office, and he's sitting there. He's not held accountable for what he produces, for what he does, the actions he takes, the policies he implements, the ideas, the thoughts, and all of those things that he aspires and he drives. Because ultimately, those policies, those ideas, those actions have an effect on the society, on the economy, because again, don't forget what we're talking about is the ecosystem. The ecosystem. If you turn this knob, it has a transformational effect on everything that's connected to it, that's plugged into it, that's tied to it. So it's so, accountability is a major part of the ecosystem. In order for the ecosystem to succeed, in order for Liberia's concession agreements to produce transformation at the various political subdivision level, be it in the counties, be it in the cities, the towns, in the geographical area, those who are signing those concessions must be held to a higher standard of accountability based on what transformation can be done at those levels, thinking from an ecosystem perspective. So important. It's so vital. It's so vital.
So yes, folks, just understand the same way we expect that level of accountability. That's the same way people should expect the same from us, and we should keep, doing the right things and approaching things the right way. But it's a strong issue that we have to look at in terms of our poverty situation. The legacy of the civil conflict, the residual impacts that's having on our people today, this whole dependence on raw materials when other people are changing the structure of the way they are doing things, and we'll get to that shortly. Overcoming our infrastructure deficit, we say binding constraints, that's how we call it. That's why stuff like the MCC, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, are trying to help us with electricity. They did improve that to 80 megawatts, and we know it's not enough. We know what happens in the dry season versus what happens in the rainy season with the amount of electricity available. I saw an ad today, a little post from somebody. Somebody sent me what the guy was saying. LEC would big y'all give you too much current right now. Essentially, we're not in America and saying the electricity is too much today. So if that is what the Liberian people can cry about, that would be great. Wouldn't that be great? Seriously.
You brought it up. You brought it up. I mean, the amazing thing, I don't understand. I don't understand how is it that we have a leadership, a government, successive governments, I don't want to put it on any one, but we have successive governments who have a burning desire, right? A burning desire, a burning purpose, a burning objective, a burning goal, set of policies to develop, to transform, create jobs, and build this country. But yet and still, they don't have an understanding of the role that energy, electricity plays in achieving their goals and their objectives. In sales and business development, we call it a disconnect. You have a complete disconnect. I mean, I don't know whether you're sitting in some, this is almost the equivalent of putting water in the bathtub, right? And taking your fishing rod and going in the bathroom and believing you're going to catch fish in the bathtub when you fill it with water. That's the best analogy I can give. You fill up the bathtub with water, you get dressed, you get your fishing rod, and you go in the bathroom, you put a bait on the hook and you put it in the bathtub and you sit there and you wonder why you're not catching any fish in the bathtub. This is the way our thinking process is. How can you truly build a country, develop a people, transform their mindsets, create jobs, economic growth, and bring about economic transformation and do value addition with all of what we have in our hands, without the most important component there? That's a disconnect. It's a disconnect. And that's why that number you gave of $2 a day, that's the reason why it is what it is. That's the reason why it is, because the thinking is wrong. The thought process is wrong. They're bringing the wrong thought process to the table, okay, making those deals.
Yeah. So going back to the main topic, we're talking about the enclave economy. We give an example, but again, the most simple example is just like iron ore. Is in Nimba, is in Bomi. They just suck it out of the ground. They drive it to Monrovia. There's some instances where people give examples of how in the 90s trucks are just going. We just see them coming. Some people have given up images of on the train track with cars and cars coming, but the jobs, the factories, the tax revenue, all of that is missing. So we need to get and follow some examples of what other people are doing. They're examples of change. This whole enclave economy thing is not limited to us. Most African countries were in that mode because they were colonized. The colonizer were taking the raw materials and just exporting it. But we have seen some recent examples where whether it's the Botswana government that has refused it with the diamonds, where now processing diamond in the country is really creating a whole diamond processing industry with huge success stories of their development. Guinea has now done it with iron ore. Okay, Benin did it with cotton, and even for this World Cup that we enjoying, that I can't even move on the screen. My wife complaining whole day, football. But they were selected by FIFA to produce some of the dresses for the World Cup. Okay, and FIFA has an initiative. They call it Made in West Africa, or Made in West Africa project, but they're focusing on only those cotton producing countries in Africa: Ivory Coast, Benin, I think Togo, and I think the 4 of them, right? But the World Trade Organization is backing this whole process along with FIFA and those countries to support sustainable economic growth in those countries, and then be able to integrate African nations into the whole global apparel supply chain. So why can we look for areas that we can partner with them? Yes, you can say, we partner with FIFA for them to build some stadiums, soccer stadium around, or soccer pitches around in Liberia. But how many of those did we do? Did people eat the money? Well, that's some corrupt. So we got to ask ourselves these hard questions. Why we can't get off like other people are getting off? What's the problem? Today, the Ghanaian economy is turning around. They got a restriction on gold. You can just export raw gold. Kenya, what is it? It says 64. Is it a potential 64 billion contract with niobium? It's a rare mineral, a critical mineral that the US is to a deal with them for.
So it again, Alba, is the thought process, the thinking. If you, as you mentioned these things, right, from Senegal to Gambia to Sierra Leone to Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Ghana, Togo, Benin. You look at all these countries. What you will notice, you go to Kenya, Burundi, you go to DRC, you go to Congo, Brazzaville, you go to Ethiopia, Eritrea. What you will notice there is that the thinking, the thought process is there's a transformational impact, right? So there's something transformative that's taking place in the way people are looking. Their level of understanding is transforming. This thing has happened again. Their level of understanding is transforming. So that transformative mindset is having an effect on the decision making and the policy making and the deal making and the business making. So if we don't adapt to that, if we do not embrace that, right? If we don't start drinking that water or breathing that air of transformation in the way we think, imagine, and then ultimately act, we are going to be left behind. Yep. We're going to be left behind. We're ultimately going to be left behind. Let me just reset. I'll be right back. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, sure. So, folks, while we're waiting for him to come back, let's talk a little bit about some of these deals we have had, right? So we're not necessarily list all the deals, but let's look at the 66 concessions that were signed, right? And the timing, and sometimes we can understand, yes, at the time we're coming out of the Civil War. And when you're coming out of a war situation, you are limited. We have 14 years of war, so we're limited. We didn't have a huge leverage position. We didn't have the bargaining chips that you need. I don't even think we had it. We had developed any kind of national investment strategy, really. So we really needed investment to come in. We needed jobs. We needed revenue, and wanted to show to the people in the world. We like this phrase: we are open for business, right? So who are at our table negotiating? I don't know some of them. We can find those different concessions and see it. But those multinational corporations and the legal teams, they're not new to this. They've been doing it for a long, long time. So it was not a fair fight. Even today, if we look at it, it's not a fair fight. Because when we look at some of these negotiations, we look at who's representing us, who's negotiating for us, and how these negotiations come. We don't get the benefits. So how do we really change that dynamic where we're just giving them all the incentives for them to come, but we're not really getting the benefits? That's where we need to revisit some of these things we've done. That's why I, for one, I was a big advocate against the results of the Moe Stephens in terms of how we had 66 out of 68 corporations that were not legally compliant. We heard Madam Salif promise that it will go and correct all those things. They will revisit those. It's been, I think, our 2013. So it's been 13 years nearly, and nothing has happened.
Nothing has been done.
It's time that, again, President Boyka, we really want you to look at this. It's an opportunity for us to get some things right. Go ahead.
That the transformation is not in the looking, because you don't see with your eyes, you see with your mind. That's why 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, or 12 persons can look at the same thing, but everybody who's looking at the same thing don't see the same thing, because everybody's mind is at a different level. Because the reality is, you look with your eyes, but you don't see with your eyes. You see with your mind. So if you take, on this energy issue, right, energy topic, I don't want to call it an issue because I don't believe it's an issue. We're plugged, like I said last week, we're plugged into one of West Africa's greatest energy supply, which is La Cote d'Ivoire. We have a long extension cord that runs through Liberia. This extension cord.
That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it.
We're plugged into it. And the extension cord runs all the way through Liberia and then runs through Sierra Leone and runs through Guinea. But then we on the Liberia side, we're not making use of this extension cord that we're plugged into. And in order for us to truly, receive the benefits of it, we really need to understand what we're plugged into. I mean, like for instance, your notes that you sent over this morning, there was a point in there where you said what really matters is not what is in your hand, but what you do with what is in your hand. Okay, it's not the iron ore that's in Liberia, but it is what do we Liberians do with the iron ore that's in our country. It's not the timber resources that is in Liberia, but it is what do we do with the timber resources in Liberia. If you think about it, okay, so for those of you who are listening, Bon County today benefits from electricity that has been extended all the way from La Cote d'Ivoire into Ganta, into Limba, and then comes down. So Jungle Power built the line. So that same technology, Ganta is plugged into, there's another extension cord that comes from Ivory Coast into Ganta, and then from Ganta all the way across, and then Jungle Power extended the line down into Bon County. The same extension cord is also in from Tolo Play, it comes into Zwedri. And then it comes also from the Ivorian side into Plibo. So why is it over the years we haven't made use of that energy supply from La Cote d'Ivoire into those counties that border La Cote d'Ivoire? So we should have great economic success, transformation, jobs, and everything along the Ivorian border that will be extending into Liberia. But again, the mindset is not there. The mindset is not there. Look at Golden Beryllium. Golden Beryllium down in the Grand Bassa and River Cess area, they're planting palm. But again, value addition on their palm oil is being done or achieved by them building their own power plant and using the waste. You're using diesel and a combination of the waste from the process to generate power because the power line is not there. So you go also, so what you're saying, Abba, is that the thinking process needs to change. The transformation needs to be introduced into that thinking process. When you sit at the table, you've got to look at it from a holistic ecosystem perspective. We talked about cassava chips, right? Cassava, one of our major foods across the country. But you go to Walmart today here in the US doesn't plant cassava. But you can buy cassava at Walmart. And most of that cassava comes from Central and South America. So why isn't Liberia exporting cassava to our value chain?
And even if we're exporting cassava to only Liberians who eat cassava in this country, it will be significant dollars.
It will be significant dollars. And then
now, so we really need to work on that. That's an opportunity,
That's an opportunity. You look at the palm butter, one of the most important foods that Liberians love across this country. So that's the question again. Why are we, not doing? All Liberians across the U.S. from California to New York to Canada, we buy palm butter every weekend to cook, but none of it is made in Liberia. In fact, there's a Liberia fresh palm butter. Is not made in Liberia, it's branded as Liberia. Why? Because the marketing team of that product figured that, hey, Liberians buy a lot of palm butter, so let's just brand something and call it Liberian Fresh. And then guess what? Liberians will gravitate towards that. We can increase our sales.
Right.
So the thinking process needs to change. That's what needs to change.
You can say
accountability. And then compensation, performance-based compensation. Don't just pay people because they're in position. Hold them accountable, and then pay them on what they produce. That stimulates transformation and job creation in their area. That's the best way to do it.
So let's flip to someone who's doing some stuff.
Okay.
Give him a little promotion. That's Mr. Maurice Dugba. He's the green gold man. And like we say, we take this little section here to do a promo of Liberian businesses, and Maurice is the first one that we are, hyping up in this case. And we got to find. Let's find his item. I don't know why it should be in the window. Yes, it's right here. We share it now. So this is something that you like, this whole wood charcoal, saying no to it and going with the stuff that Morris has. This is a wonderful business by itself. It's called Green Gold. I've been to his facility in the VOA area, VOA community in Broadville City. And it's really something to save the environment. We've been talking about deforestation and how it's impacting us. We're talking about climate change. Now we're talking about carbon market in Liberia. We have the Carbon Market Authority headed by Madam Janine Cooper. They're trying to see how we can really, get some money for the carbon credits that we have. So all of these are things that are happening. And then we have an institution like Green Gold. It's Liberian owned, very proudly. They're doing the right thing. This is one of the flyers. They say, join the fight against climate change. Use real coconut flour.
Let me reset again. Okay, let me reset again.
Sure.
I don't know what's happening. Let me reset.
All right. They have cook stoves and they're trying to do their thing. There's one on the single stove. There's the double stove. They got the actual charcoal. They call it fire coal. And yeah, if you cook better, you protect Liberia, and we are all safer for that. So now we'll share with you the little promotional video. Hopefully you enjoy the music. My preference will be in Liberian music, but hey, it's what we have. So let's listen.
When the fire would atonement and the charcoal that fear, trouble come and trouble left for the kitchen year by year. You take the fire, won't take home. You vexed, you want to flee. Mama, you hear the spirit talk. Green road fire lighter, let it fire out, let it fire out, let it fire out, let it fire out, let it fire out. See the hot hope, let it fire out. And when the darkness covers you, green road fire lighter, let it fire out. And when the market is too hard, and the small change you get, no time to waste with plenty stick. Just one match, you sure to bet. No more for bloody dusty cold. No more for cry for chimney feet. Brother, you hear the market call. Green old fire lighter. Let it fire out. Let it fire out. Let it fire out. Let it fire out. See the hot toe. Let it fire out. And when the darkness covers you, no fire lighter. Let it fire out. Oh, if it's picking them outside, they're cold and waiting for their chop. Just place the cube, no need for hide. The smoke go up, it no go stop. It clean, it quick, it's strong, it's set. It make the job for you complete. They look at you, the whole picking them say, thank you for the quickie.
So they give me a whole story. No more cook with the right thing.
It's a great product. I love this product. I can't wait to get this guy on the show.
Yeah, we'll get Morris back on the show. I think he joined us before.
Yeah,
you can even be a reseller.
I would love for him to
talk about sustainable energy. This is what it's all about.
Yep.
Okay, so that was our plug. That's part of what we do to encourage businesses now with this new format. We profile and get them on now and then.
Let's start taking some calls. If you want to take some calls today,
right. So let's. I think I saw Rufus. He put the number here. Said call if you're on the ground 0887-105-105 or 778-665-073 to participate. And you are calling with Love FM 105.1. So
if you're in Banga, Bon County, if you're in Kakata, in Cape Mount, across Monrovia, Magidi, pick up the phone. You listen to the show. We would love to get your take on the topic we're discussing today. We're still talking about our ecosystem mindset. How can concessions within Liberia produce transformation at all levels of our economy, and how we Liberians in the diaspora can participate in that. So transformation within the ecosystem and the new level of thinking as it relates to policy, concession agreements, business. Even if you're, I mean, let's look at it from this perspective, Baba. I just thought about something. So even if, let's talk about this charcoal, right? This charcoal that this guy bringing about. That charcoal, that product, even if you look at the charcoal business in Liberia today, it's part of the ecosystem. It provides fuel. It provides fuel that Liberians need every day to cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, all the restaurants.
What a phrase, they pack out a ball, right? Everybody pack out a ball.
Yeah. There's no way for that pot to boil unless you get fuel to fire up that coal pot or whatever it is. So that's part of the ecosystem. Then trees need to be cut down. They got to burn it in the bush. Then you got transportation. You got machetes and axes that need to be sold and bought. You need labor to go along with that. You need the bags to load the coal in. Then you need trucks and pickup to bring it to the market. Then the market women will have to buy it wholesale and then sell it retail. So there's a whole ecosystem that surrounds that whole charcoal business across Liberia. This is taking place in every political subdivision across the country. So that product alone is an ecosystem. So the existing charcoal. But then when you bring this new product in the market, let's talk about what it was going to save. It's going to save the environment. It's going to reduce the cutting of trees. But the success of this product in the market is what? The distribution system. He needs to create a distribution network, and he needs to produce enough product to meet the demand. And I'm sure his facility runs on electricity. So we're back to the same point again. So it'll be interesting for him to come on the show to talk about it. So everything within Liberia is all about the ecosystem. It's all about the ecosystem. So give us a call if you're in Monrovia, if you're in Kakata, if you're in lower upper Margidi, if you're in Bon County, Banga, Tapeta, wherever you're listening to the show, feel free to call 0887-105105 or 0778-665073. We would love to hear from you on the air on Business Talk today. If you're small, petty, or large Liberian business across Liberia, across the listening area, or just on Facebook, or if you're in the diaspora, give us a call. Ava, you want to put your number so they can call you and you can put them on the air? If you want to do it that way? Or you don't want to give your number?
No, I mean, I can add my number. It's just, initially we said,
that's fine. Let the people on the ground call.
Yeah. But my number is how should I say it? I don't mind my number, because if I don't want to talk to you, I can tell you I don't want to talk to you.
You be team control.
I'll be team control. I got my rights, so I will apply them at any time. Yeah.
I don't have to answer every telephone call.
No,
yeah, but that's the key. That's the key.
Yeah.
The thought process needs to change. And it needs to change at every level, from top down and from bottom up. It needs to change. We need to start thinking ecosystem. We need to start thinking how everything affects something else. We need to start looking at the big picture. We need to start, trying to bring this level of thinking into our agreements, concession agreements, business agreements. Everything needs to be looked at, viewed from this ecosystem perspective.
Right. So let's share this. So I've added my number. You can also call if you on WhatsApp anywhere in the world. You can call +1 301 655 5984 to ask a question or give your perspective. Similarly, if you're on the ground, you can call the Love FM station. We have people at the keyboards on 0887 105 105 or 0778 665 073. Yeah. So those are the numbers to call to participate. Again, we don't want to be the only one making noise here, because y'all know that we're making noise now. It can be positive, it can be negative. But we don't want to be the only ones talking. We want it to be where we get input from other people, we got ideas from other people, and then they are involved. So for the last segment now, we can talk about why some of these things happen. Like we said before, the war, we needed investment, we needed those things to come. So we're not negotiating from a position of strength. It was now a fair fight. All right, we're trying to rebuild as a country. We negotiating against a company with hundreds of years of experience, being doing this thing, all different places. We're giving them everything, tax holidays, import incentives. We're not applying the rules, limited profit participation, limited what do you call it stuff, local participation. The equity requirements were limited, the royalty were limited. So we're just trying to give them a sweet deal, right? But now we've come to this point where we have gained some stability and realized that some of these things are not right. So we need some sovereign accountability introduced into these discussions these days. Many of these agreements got clause, especially the arbitration clauses, that limits our ability to change any of the terms, whether unilaterally or whether we want to come to the table, and that gives the company the right to take us to arbitration and whatever. And those things are expensive. So we don't want to risk it. We don't want to scare people off, right? But what we got to try to do here is to look at these contracts and find out, one, why they're not performing these concessions. What is our benefits and why are we not getting them? If we really look at this, we can produce a body of work, information that can actually reverse some of these things and make our natural resources work for us. So to the extent that, the people in government can look at some of these things and be able to help us as a people get more of what we deserve, it will be very critical. It will impact everything, especially if the money is used for the right purposes. It will impact education, it will impact healthcare, it will impact the economy, it will impact government support of some of the things we talk about, whether in the agriculture sector, whether in the small trade sector or wherever. People need help, they need facilitation, they need access to capital that is not prohibitive or not extortionary, like some of the banks are charging the kind of interest rate or the kind of time period they want people to pay. So to that extent, if we can get some of those things happening, it will be wonderful. So now let's get to why we are at the place we are in terms of the structure. We know we hear some of these words all the time. We're coming out of war. Our country was broke. Our institutions were, shattered. We didn't have anything. Everything had to be rebuilt. So we had no leverage, right? So the IMF and the World Bank, these international financial institutions that really control, basically everything when it comes to poor country. They came and set down the rules. If you do X, Y, Z, this is how we can support you. And we being in a vulnerable position, we can write a rule book. We can tell them how we want the support to come. So they impose certain rules on us, certain business ideas, certain ways for us to be able to, conduct ourselves, or they will now work with us. And that's where this whole idea of the how should I call it, Washington Consensus. That was the origin. That's how the rule book was written. And it was done in the 1980s by this economist called John Williamson. He basically gave a list of things that the U.S. Department of Treasury, the IMF, the World Bank, all of them, they met and they kind of endorsed this list of activities that they felt us developing countries had to comply with, or they were essentials for us to be able to stabilize and grow our economy. And they were broad. And don't get me wrong, all of these things are not bad. They're not. But it's about how you apply them. So one is fiscal discipline. You got to cut government deficits. Another one is redirect public spending away from subsidies towards other things where you can subsidize certain programs. They want you to avoid that. Okay. Then tax reform. We have multiple tax reform. Right now, I hear people are crying about taxes. But we need to broaden the tax base. And that broadening the tax base is also something about moving from the informal sector to the formal sector. That's a whole different topic that, I have a passion about. It's called the dual sector economy, where we got the informal and we got the formal. And for us in Liberia, the informal is nearly 75 to 80% of our economy. And then before we come to, we need to shift that inequality over there. Then you got the whole thing about interest rates, letting the market set interest rates instead of government. So we got extortionary interest rates out there in terms of lending and stuff like that. Then we got a dual currency. Then they talk about competitive exchange rates. We are behind that. Then they do trade liberalization, where they gave lower tariffs to these companies coming in. They gave so many different incentives, but we are still being taxed as things come in because we don't have, as Liberians, as Liberian businesses, we don't have those same incentives. Then the foreign direct investment, where we give them again, the world will open it up because we want them to, come to our economy and invest in our economy. So those are some of the challenges that we face. Plus, again, the whole deregulation thing, making it easier for people to do business, and then property rights. Right now, that one of the major issues in the country, property rights. There's trespassing, there's squatting, there's people fighting for land. The other day we saw a lawmaker after a court decision. Supposedly he was fighting somebody. I think it was Enders that was in the picture. Okay, so the land business is a serious issue. It's something that there's solutions out there. I'm a part of a group that wants to provide that solution, but is our government responding to it? Are they themselves really feeling the emergency, the urgency to improve the land situation? That's sometimes questionable when the people who are there are not doing the necessary stuff. So all these things, they call the structural adjustment. All those different things are just named, right? And they are programmed by our country, whether on the World Bank or whether on the IMF. Aquino, is that you coming in, or is it?
Yes, Rufus said he's being bombarded with so many callers on his side. A lot of people are calling on his side. He wants to bring them on.
He got to come on the show.
Yeah, he needs to come on. Rufus, if you're hearing us, you need to join the show so that you can bring them in through your side.
Yeah, they're coming in through your line. So you need to come on the show, Rufus. It'll be wonderful to have the people.
Yeah. How about please resend the link, the StreamYard link on Facebook, on Business Talk for me, on my other laptop. I think there's a problem on this side of the switch. Why you send us in our group?
Yeah.
Good reason.
But right there, I was 6:45 in the morning, so let me
No,
give it
you
to him
keep
again.
just send it over to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so while we're waiting for folks to call, and folks, please feel free to call. You can call my number too, 301-655-5984. Or you can call Rufus in the studio at 0887-105-105 or 0778-866-5073. This should be a conversation. This should be something people are interested in, participating in. So while we are waiting, I want to give a shout out to a young man who just recently, graduated with an associate degree, I believe, in education. Let me just confirm. We got to encourage our young people as they pursue
this. I don't know why he's not able to get the people on.
No, but he hadn't signed on. He was asking for the show. And so let me just share this. So this is Mr. Samuel Brew. He's
Oh yeah, Samuel, the great Samuel. He graduated today.
Yeah, with an associate degree in, I believe, primary education. So
Yep.
Congratulations to Samuel. You see his image. Relax. There you go. So Samuel, congratulations. I think you did send me some pictures, some actual pictures from today. Let me see if I can find them as well. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we found those pictures. So let's share them with you.
Add me to the show on the other side.
Yeah. Your screen is black though, Akina.
Yeah,
so Samuel, congratulations. We appreciate you. We're excited that you are pursuing this. Don't let this be the stopping point. There's more to go for you, a lot more to achieve. So continue your path, and we wish you the most success. All right. So hopefully, our man Rufus can get some callers in, so we can get their perspective. We got
I don't know what Rufus is having.
Well, we don't know, but he is having problems. So let's see if we can continue. Because we got to set the table. That's next week. We're going to this whole Washington consensus. We're going to the IMF and the World Bank and see how the structure of our economy is, and how those rules. How can we bypass those rules for us to be able to, move our country forward? It's been a challenge for sure, but there are some of those rules that can be worked. Not all of them are bad, like I said. So Rufus here? No, Rufus is not here yet.
Okay, how about Rufus said that the passcode is in your email. You need to check your email to send you a passcode for the.
It's not to my email. That email is a common. That email is a common email for all of us. So he has access to that email.
For all of us. Okay.
Rufus, you don't have access to that email.
Let everybody call you then. Because that's going to take time.
Yeah, that's fine for them to call me. But I don't think StreamYard will send me that for that right now. They will send it to that LIB based email. So let me see if I can add it to my email.
Yes, like he's
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't think the other call, what they call the call. Let me see. Hold on. Hello? Not right now on the show. You can call me back. My man, call me back. All right. So, Rufus needed the code to sign on.
Yeah, I think, you know, as you're doing that, I think I was reading that article you sent about Guinea and the iron ore and that new iron ore corridor, the new port, and part of that whole development for that whole new economic corridor. It's an ecosystem type project that the Guinean president has undertaken. I mean, he's transformed everything as it relates to that investment. It's not only iron ore. You know, iron ore is the main natural resource there, but the new rail link. There's an agriculture corridor that's doing there. There's a whole
once you got transportation like that, you open the road. You open the road big time.
You open the road, and then they build a whole new hydropower system that's now going to be integrated into the Transco grid. And then they also got Transco on their side as well. So it's just what you were talking about. It's an ecosystem, type project that will have transformational effect for Guinea for many, many years to come. Jobs will be created. The economy is going to expand. They're young, and Guinea has almost 18 to 20 million people. And a lot of young people are in Guinea, and they're all going to benefit from this. They're all going to benefit from this. They're going to benefit from this. So we as a people, we as a nation, our leaders need to start thinking in that new way, transformational thinking, ecosystem type thought process, results-based compensation. Don't just pay people because they're in a position, so they'll just get there, sit there, no responsibility, no accountability. So nobody is motivated to produce results. And so as a result, the small business people, medium-sized business people, small and medium-sized enterprises that depend on that ecosystem to survive and to keep moving forward. And then they themselves want to grow. You cannot be a petty business for the next 10 years. There has to be an upward mobility path that takes you from a micro business or a petty business to a medium-sized business and ultimately to a large business. So, and you can only do that with that level of transformational thinking that, every business in every sector is part of an ecosystem. And then what can we do to support this ecosystem and its growth and its expansion across the country? And how, again, most importantly, how can the diaspora play a role in this ecosystem? Because again, diaspora money into Liberia is over $800 million, almost $1 billion. So where is all of that money going to go into this ecosystem, into every county, because it's coming through cell phones? So I think new thinking, a new way of thinking, a new level of thinking, a whole new, strategy of thinking. These are the things that are needed to enable Liberia for Liberians, to develop. And development is not only in the physical nature of things, but it's also, most importantly, is in the mental aspect of things. What are you seeing on your side?
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing is fact. The call's not coming through yet, but this whole thing about development is more than just being a government official. It's also caring, really wanting positive things to happen for Liberians and not counting other Liberians' money. That's a tendency a lot of Liberians tend to have. They worry about what the next person will get, right? And we should not be counting. We should be happy when any librarian is successful. Any librarian is getting money, and that's why I want to get a shout out to Tim Weah. He's a librarian representing the red, white, and blue. Yes, he's playing for the U.S. Another red, white, and blue, but he's playing out there, and we just hope that his games can be better. This last game was not the greatest, but we know the talent he has. We know the capability. We know the stock he comes from in terms of, genetic soccer. So we just hope the best for him, right? And that's what all librarians should be hoping for. But we hear some librarians being negative, making all kind of funny comments. Not every day everybody can be on top of the game. Some of the greatest players can have bad days. The other day, the first game Portugal played, Ronaldo had a bad game. He came back, he scored a goal, he said he's back. Messi had a bad game initially when Argentina was playing. Then eventually the game improved within that game. So different people can have bad days on different days, but we just got to keep wishing each other the best, especially at that level of soccer. It's not too many people ever get to that level, so we got to be supportive. And, karma is a tough thing, man. If that negative vibe is just flowing from people, it can affect people. So we want to be positive, want to support, want to, like, any of our young people who are doing things out there. And a lot of young librarians are doing successful things out there. We got to reach out to them. We got the guy named Mohamed Toure on the Australian team. I think there's a librarian on that team. There's a librarian in Canada. I don't know if Canada is going to make it to the next round. I think they will make it. So we got to support the librarians who are out there, who are playing sports, who are doing music, who are doing whatever. If we build that, sense of loving each other, caring for each other, it will impact. And same with our government officials. They have to look at how they can support the different businesses in other ways. We just talked about earlier the FIFA thing, right? So can they take that initiative down to reach out to FIFA and say, how can we collaborate on some of the things where we have, quote unquote, comparative advantage, or the areas that align with our economic development? We are basically a football country too. Every little corner you go in Liberia, you see children playing soccer somewhere. I mean, I can imagine a town what they call this stuff name? Luncheon Meat Cup. No, just playing Brown playing the yard. Luncheon Meat Cup cut nearly my foot nearly in half from playing barefoot and stuff. At the bottom time, I stopped my toe playing on iron rock, So
that's exactly right.
So if
those were the days. Those were the days.
And now it's a different day. Today, the parents see the opportunities that sports can bring. So it's not like every time I want to play soccer, back when I was younger, they used to flog me. No, today parents can encourage their kids to play sport, So it's a different day. So if we can, as a country, encourage our athletes, provide for the national team so that the national team be crying, whether it's for their transportation, whether it's for their lodging, whether it's for their per dime, it's very limited. We have to look at those things because it's all part of building this national ecosystem that we're talking about here. You can't leave one side weak and expect that the other side will be strong and be able to. No, we got to try to build.
No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, if you think about it, Ava, if you think about it, one of the greatest things we have in our country that truly brings everyone together every year is the National County League. The National County League for football is something that really, really brings the entire country together every year. It brings everybody together every year. Every county, there's county pride across the country. So, my thing is, if this one thing, galvanizes, brings everybody together, county by county, why can't we use that and build upon that? Why can there not be an agricultural competition as a national county league? which county produced the most amount of these 10 crops.
Actually, the Ministry of they have had the agriculture fairs. They have actually had the agriculture fairs, but they probably don't promote it enough for everybody to know. And then some of the
This is my point. This is my point. That's exactly right. That's my point. So if you know, if something works, then continue using it, and then build upon it, expand upon it, because if people in the county can galvanize when Maryland County is playing Riverside County, then use that as a means to bring the farmers together. Let there be a national competition. Have the 10 key crops that will be grown in the counties, and then let there be a competition among the counties who will produce the most amount of rice, the most amount of cassava. But at the same time, when you want people to produce those crops, then have a market and buyers who will buy what the counties produce, and then do the value addition, you see. And then when you do the value addition, you wouldn't want to the people, you know, the people invest their money in producing the crops, and then after the fair, what happens next? Everything goes to spoil them because you haven't invested in the infrastructure for value addition and preservation of what it is that they've produced. So I think, you know, again, that's why the ecosystem approach, the ecosystem way of thinking, the ecosystem way of going about transforming our economy, transforming our way of thinking that will ultimately lead to economic empowerment and development across the country is so critical. It's so critical. A new way of thinking, everyone. I mean, business talk is doing what we all agree to do. Yes, we're beyond our 1.5 hours. So let's just conclude and then do parting comments. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the technical side. The technology is great until it works. Yeah. So today we didn't get it to work. So our sincere apologies, deepest apologies to everyone who tried to call. Ava, before we close, you want to read some of the comments here? So at least people can kind of know what the people were saying and stuff like that.
No, let's not let them come on the show so they can see it. So now,
I know.
We want to say, like we said, we ask you, as the government, based on the show we had today, we want government to start looking at value addition, right? So there may be sectors where we're doing value addition. There's a way for government to look at all these different major commodities or stuff that we have and see what the value chain that is actually being captured domestically, sector by sector, so we can have that, share that with the public. Because if you don't share, the public is not aware of what's happening. And everything is data today. Data is gold. You got data, you got everything. You don't have data, you're losing out. Then you in the business, you just did a great job, of laying out the value and supply chain for the charcoal business, right? So people need to look at themselves and see where they fit and start wondering, okay, I'm in a business. So who can do what upstream or who can do what downstream that can affect me? So that's how we need to start looking. And then to our callers, to our listeners, are you understanding what we are receiving from these concessions? Is the Bureau of Concessions doing its work? Have you looked at anything called a country plan from any of these multinational corporations operating in Liberia? Have you looked at what they are supposed to be doing if they in, let's say you're looking at Metal Steel, they in Basa, they in Nimba? Are you looking at those plans as a person from Basa, as a person from Nimba to say, this is what these people are supposed to be doing and this is what they're doing? So until the public can become knowledgeable about some of these things and understand how it affects them and how things are supposed to be, we'll just be operating in a vacuum. We need more people to be aware of their surroundings, aware of the economy, aware of where our country is and what we need to do to move forward. So closing words from you, and then we can exit.
Well, I mean, like you rightly said, I mean, this is not, our discussions, our deliberations on these topics is not about picking fights or castigating or highlighting anyone's incompetence or making anyone to look bad or feel bad. I think that as Liberians, right, people in the diaspora, we're just trying to meet up with our responsibilities, right? We work in industrialized environments, industrialized economy, and what we need to do, our accountability is to bring these type of ideas back to our country so that we can help in providing some form of transformative way of thinking. We can't keep doing the same old thing from 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s in 2026. There's got to be a new way of thinking, because if it worked back then, definitely it's not going to work today. We need to change structures, and we need to, and the most important way of thinking, like Ava mentioned last week, and I'll beat that horse to death, no matter how dead it is, ecosystem. We've got to think ecosystem. You like that one? The horse died last week, but I'm still beating it today. Ecosystem, value addition. Ecosystem, value addition. Our economy is a national economy, but that national economy has individual parts, and those individual parts are at the county level. At the county level, it's even broken down even more. There's a transportation ecosystem on the motorbike, the pet riders, and everybody else. There's an ecosystem level for the agri. So we need to bring that level of thinking into every decision. And before we move a piece on the board, we need to understand how moving that piece is going to affect the overall ecosystem, either for positive or for negative. And we need to make sure that adding a piece on the board in this ecosystem, what positive effects it will bring and what negative effects it will bring. So thank you, Rufa, Devon County, I love FM. The guys in Banga, Bon County, thank you so much for relaying the show up there. The team in Kakata, two radio stations in Kakata. And thank you to everyone who joined the show by way of Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We appreciate you so much. And again, let's continue business talk next week. What are we going to be talking about next week, Ava? What do you think? What do you want to bring up?
Well, like I said earlier, we're going to be actually talking about the Washington Consensus.
That charcoal guy,
yeah, he can probably pop in, but we'll be talking about the Washington Consensus and how some of those agreements are structured, and how we can, we as Liberians, we as people in the public, how we can impact some of that and see how can we change the rules, or how can we let the current rules work for us? All these conditionalities, how do we uplift ourselves from those things? How do we mobilize capital domestically that we got money to spend on other things, and we don't have to focus on only the money coming from the international community? We know the government is big time on saying, revenue generation, increasing the government revenue and stuff like that. And there are a lot of areas where revenue can actually be increased, or that we're not getting the deserved revenues, whether it's from our whether from other arrangements, whether from our investments abroad. All of those things are areas that can really impact the economy. So I want to say thank you for watching today. We really look forward to our next show. We should be talking about the Washington Consensus, the World Bank, the IMF, and their relationship with us, and how some of that can be improved. So thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.